1990, on a sunny Sunday just made for racing, tire trouble took its toll on some race favorites. With the competition wearing thin, Bobby Rahal and Arie Luyendyk took control. The two front runners blistered the track at times, running laps at better than 220 miles per hour. Rahal held the lead after 400 miles, but Luyendyk steadily closed the gap. On lap 168, Luyendyk made his move, passed Rahal, and never looked back, winning the Indianapolis 500 in record time. Hello, I'm Bob Jenkins. Born in Holland and aspiring to Formula One racing, Arie Luyendyk hit the IndyCar circuit in 1985. Though he was successful, he always came up short at the checkered flag. His first win came in 1990 at the greatest spectacle in racing. Arie Luyendyk raced his way into history at the Indy 500, a race for heroes. As a boy growing up in Holland, Arie Luyendyk learned racing from the inside. His father was a driver who also prepared cars for other drivers. And though Arie grew up in the land where Formula One racing was king, he was familiar with the Indy 500.
I remember when Jim Clark came to Indianapolis the first time. That is when I heard about it, because I was a fan of Jim Clark when I was a kid. And so he had won there, and it was a big deal in Europe. And being a fan of him introduced me to Indy.
15 years after Jim Clark won the Indy 500, Arie Luyendyk got his first taste of oval racing in America. It was a 1980 Super V race in Phoenix.
I enjoyed the oval, and I enjoyed the atmosphere very much, which was very nice. And I fell in love with the Indy cars and set out a goal that's where I want to be, because Formula One just seemed to be real far away at that time.
Luyendyk continued to race in America, and in 1984 made his first visit to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
They put my name on there, and it was a scary thought. Because in '84 I went to Indy for the first time, and I was standing in turn one, and cars coming down the straight flat out, and then it was time to turn left, and he was still flat out, and it came by so fast I couldn't believe it. I said, do I have to do this next year?
1985. Like most rookies, Luyendyk had a quiet debut. His qualification time was a modest 206+ miles per hour. And on race day, he lined up in the middle of the 7th row. Running with a conservative plan, Luyendyk moved into 10th place at the 30-lap mark. He continued to drive a steady race, moving up to 8th following the lap 123 accident involving Howdy Holmes, Rich Vogt, and Tom Sneva. On lap 170, he ducked into the grass to avoid John Paul Jr. And when Danny Sullivan took the checkered flag, Luyendyk had moved into 7th place. For Luyendyk, finishing the race and winning Rookie of the Year were just part of the plan.
The goal was to have a smooth race, try and stay out of trouble, learn a lot. And we were looking at becoming a big deal when you just get there for the first time. And I've said, you know, the last couple of weeks with all these interviews, if I would have known in '85 what I know now, I would have finished a lot higher than 7th. But you're a little bit cautious, you're not as aggressive.
It has been said the problem with rookies is they eventually become second-year drivers. And it was no different for Luyendyk. He struggled with a modestly funded operation while the big-name drivers wowed ends with fast times and talk of the pole position. Rick Mears took the pole. Danny Sullivan and Michael Andretti completed the front row. And Arie Luyendyk settled for 19th starting position. Luyendyk got off to a shaky start, but recovered.
'86, at the start of the race, I went underneath Brabham in turn 3, the passion that Brabham on the first lap didn't look, and when he came down with my right front, I hit his left rear, and Jeff went really sideways, and I was glad to see that he didn't spin around, because he caught it. He really did a good job. But the bump was pretty hard, and it threw my steering out of alignment. And from then on, we were just struggling with the car, it was real bad.
Luyendyk worked up to 11th place when a bad day got even worse. On the leader's lap 195, Luyendyk spun coming out of turn 4, hit the wall, and stopped at the pit entrance. Luyendyk was uninjured. The track was cleared. And Bobby Rahal passed Kevin Kogan on the restart and went on to win. In 1987, Luyendyk joined the Himmelgarn team. It was a change for the better. While many teams struggled with the new March chassis, Luyendyk made it work. He qualified for the inside of the 3rd row for his best starting position in 3 tries. After dropping back briefly at the start, Luyendyk stormed up to 3rd place at the 30-lap mark. Lyon consistently ran in the top 4 until mechanical problems dropped him back at the halfway mark. Frustrated, the usually calm Dutchman hit a tire in the pits, knocking him out for the day.
The emotions got the better of me that day. I was so mad that we lost the wastegate and lost this opportunity that I was mad. And you don't want to get mad in the race car because you want to keep your emotions in order. You want to control them. And I didn't do that, and that's why I hit the tire in the pit, because I just wasn't controlling myself.
1988, coming off the strong yet disappointing race the previous year, Luyendyk entered with a new team, Dick Simon Racing. With his 3rd team in 4 years, Luyendyk qualified for the outside of row 2, his best starting position at Indy. On race day, the car performed beautifully as Luyendyk picked his way to the front of the pack. By lap 40, he had put the Dick Simon Provimi Beal machine into 2nd place. Luyendyk dropped to 9th following a costly 28-second stop. Back on the track, misfortunes continued. A.J. FOYT crashed in turn 2, bringing out the yellow. On the restart, Luyendyk rear-ended Ludwig Heimrad, who had slowed suddenly coming out of turn 3. And Luyendyk was forced to stop again. Luyendyk struggled to the finish with a borrowed front wing and ended up with a well-earned 10th place. Though his first 4 years were tough, Luyendyk would soon rise to the top. (1989). The Indy Chevy engine was the dominant force. Perennial front-runners Emerson Fittipaldi, Rick Mears, Michael and Mario Andretti, and a handful of others set the pace driving cars powered by the favored power plants. Meanwhile, Arie Luyendyk toiled with the underpowered Cosworth.
When I was with Dick Simon, we had, in 88 and 89, we had cars that handled just beautiful. And we had the cars with power. And I could do some fast laps, like 19 and almost a 20 last year. But as soon as I would pick up the draft from a Chevy engine, I'd go 2 miles an hour quicker.
Without the benefit of the draft, Luyendyk failed to improve on his best previous flying position. He would have to start the race from the middle of the pack. Emerson Fittipaldi jumped to the early lead, beating Paul Rick Mears to the first turn. While further back, Arie Luyendyk ran his usual steady pace. Despite having an underpowered car, Luyendyk worked his way up to 10th. And by the 100-lap mark, he had pulled up to 6th place as Fittipaldi held the lead. On lap 123, Luyendyk was still solidly in 6th place when his engine blew. Despite the moderate success, that would be his last Indy fight with Dick Simon. Car owner Doug SHIERSON, impressed with Luyendyk's talent, signed him later that year.
I thought that Arie needed a chance to show what he could do. I personally like Arie Luyendyk, and I think he's an excellent race driver. And I think he's one of the best that I've seen on super speedways. And when you come down to IndyCar racing, these cars are built for super speedways.
I actually signed with the team after the race at Laguna Seca, at the last race of the year, '89. And I was talking to Doug. I think the first time we spoke was in Pocono. So is it August or September? I'm not sure. And I wasn't aware that Doug was got the Chevys, of course. So, you know, that was not the reason I made the switch. But when we got it, of course, I was ecstatic because I knew where it would help me the most would be at Indianapolis. Because at Indy, you could just see the last few years that the guys with the Chevys, they were just blowing everybody away.
As the 1990 month of May got underway, it soon became apparent that this would be a record-breaking year. Speed soared routinely into the mid-220s. Jim Crawford soared into the air. And Al Unser Jr. topped the speed charts with an unofficial lap of 228 plus. But as the heavyweights hot-lapped, Luyendyk quietly put in some quick times of his own. No one on the SHIERSON team was surprised.
We'd come down earlier in the spring. We'd done a one-day test in pretty heavy wind conditions. And I think as a team, we went away realizing that we had a very good combination.
After fine-tuning the car, Luyendyk and his crew were ready to qualify. Some say this is the toughest part about racing at Indy.
I don't really get too nervous about qualifying because I try not to get nervous because it doesn't really help you. And I think the first lap is always very important. Once you get the first lap done and it's fast, you know, then you get more confident and then it's just a matter of doing the other three.
Rains washed out the entire first day and most of the second scheduled day of qualifications. Finally, after 2 agonizing days of hurry up and wait, the rains quit. And after several hot laps by the track dryer, the qualifications began. Emerson Fittipaldi set the pace with a record average of 225.301 miles per hour. Bobby Rahal temporarily spot on the front row with a somewhat disappointing average of 222.694 miles per hour. Rick Mears also earned a front row position, though he couldn't unseat Fittipaldi from the pole. After just 80 minutes of qualifying, 15 cars staked their claims to starting positions in the 1990 Indy 500. But potential pole winners, Al Unser Jr. and Luyendyk, would have to wait another for their chance. For Luyendyk, it was a difficult week.
The whole week leading up to qualifying, you look towards that moment. And then you look towards up the moment like I did, and then you have to wait another week. And then you have to go through that whole mental thing again. So yes, I thought it was hard because I've never qualified on the second weekend. I've always done it the first day in all the years I've been there. So, and I wanted to be like that if I can forever, because I just want to do it the first day, get it over and done with, and then concentrate on your race setup.
After another week of fine-tuning, preparing strategies, and nail-biting, qualifications continued. Several cars were still eligible for the pole, but only a few were serious threats. Danny Sullivan put himself solidly in the starting lineup with an average of 220 plus. Finally, Luyendyk his chance, and he ran with it. Ripping off very consistent laps, Luyendyk put himself on the front row with an average speed of 223.304 miles per hour. It would be his and Doug Shearson's first time ever on the front row.
We would have liked to have gone for the pole. I think we would have had a chance the first weekend. I think the conditions were just a little bit better those last 2 hours of the first. But, hey, that's the way it goes. We were extremely pleased to be on the front row. It was a good place to start the race from. I preferred the outside. But, I mean, the pole position, of course, is not only lucrative in both prestige and money, It's an excellent place to start, too, in the history books.
Luyendyk's position on the front row was ensured when Al Jr. settled for a disappointing average of just under 201 miles per hour. Finally, the qualifications were complete. Arie Luyendyk was pleased with his team. At the dawn of another Indy 500, even before the crowd began filing in, team owner Doug SHIERSON put the day in perspective by walking around the half-mile oval.
I never figured that I'd drive around it, you know, in a race car, and I wanted to see what it was like. So I was trying to get some exercise. And occasionally, if you talk to the right people and did it early enough in the morning, they allowed it. And it really gives you a totally different perspective of the whole place. I mean, it is... I mean, everybody that has been here and been involved realizes that, I mean, you know, this really is an awesome facility. And when you come in on race day or there for the race, you look around and you look at all these people, I mean, you just can't believe it.
As the pageantry ran its course, 33 drivers and their crews prepared for a warm, sunny day of high-speed motor racing. After all the practicing, all the waiting, and all the strategy sessions, it was finally time to race.
Gentlemen, start your engines.
Left in front of me was Rick and Emerson, and then behind me I saw Andretti, and then Rahal was tucked in there, and you still have to focus on one, so you really are doing a lot of eye work in that first dash to the first corner.
As he did the year before, Emerson Fittipaldi shot out to the early lead, followed by Mears, Luyendyk, and Rahal. Fittipaldi continued to lead at record-setting speeds when his Penske teammate Danny Sullivan crashed in turn one. Something broke on the car. With the yellow caution flags out, the dash to the pits began, and Luyendyk almost made a crucial mistake.
I didn't slow down as much as I should have, because you want to get back to the pits in a hurry. You know, it's the competition that does that to you. That's the tricky thing about Indy, is estimating cars slowing down on the caution or coming into the pits. Level over 200 miles an hour on the track, and then in the pits it seems like it's a lot slower than it is, but it is still pretty quick, and that's when you start overshooting your pits. So that was a little bit of a moment.
Despite his little mistake, Luyendyk remained active in his chase for leader Fittipaldi. Attrition began to take its toll on Tony Bettenhausen, Mario Andretti, and Pancho Carter. And as the field stretched out, only Fittipaldi, Al Unser Jr., Rahal, Michael Andretti, and Luyendyk remained on the lead lap. Fittipaldi timed his stops perfectly to protect his lead, but he couldn't shake the other front runners. After leading the first 2 laps, Fittipaldi ducked into the pits. Third-place driver Michael Andretti followed with a smoking rear half shaft. And Arie Luyendyk pulled into the lead for the first time at Indy. Following Luyendyk's next scheduled pit stop, Fittipaldi regained the lead. But Unser, Rahal, and Luyendyk still stayed close. This front-running foursome was definitely the class of the field. One of the 4 was in trouble. Al Unser Jr. began slowing down. A short time later, Fittipaldi began slowing down as well. On lap 135, he made an unscheduled pit stop under the green. His tires were blistering, and Rahal and Luyendyk picked up the pace. Rahal took the lead, averaging better than 182 per hour. But John Andretti brushed the wall coming out of turn 4 and spun going into turn 1 to bring out the yellow on lap 141. Back under the green, Fittipaldi made a second unscheduled pit stop on lap 153. Blistered tires put him 1 lap behind the leaders. 6 laps later, Unser Jr. fell to the same problem, also dropping a lap behind. The 2-car battle for the lead, Rahal led Luyendyk by 5 seconds, but the Flying Dutchman was closing the gap. On lap 162, Luyendyk matched Fittipaldi's fastest lap of the race exactly, devouring the pavement at 222.574 miles per hour. He was rapidly gaining on Rahal, but Luyendyk was in no hurry to pass. By lap 168, Luyendyk was ready to make a move.
Coming out of 1, I kind of lifted off and then got on it and timed it right. Would I come off the corner, be right behind either Bobby or Scott Goodyear. Went through turn 2 and I could see Bobby was held up a little bit, so I drafted Goodyear. Then I went out and by and drafted Bobby, and then I went by in turn 3.
For the second time in his career, Luyendyk took the lead at Indy, and he made the most of it. Stretching his lead by about a second a lap, Luyendyk was firmly in control. Running laps at close to 220 miles per hour, Luyendyk was anything but complacent. Backing off just enough to let Fittipaldi unlap himself at the white flag, Luyendyk stormed to the finish unchallenged.
When I came out of 4 and I saw the flags, and then, I don't know, I just went, I was kind of screaming in my helmet, you know, like, yeah, you know, real loud, just to myself. And just kind of shook my hand up in the air, just kind of out of relief or something. But it was a great feeling that I won an IndyCar race finally, and to do it in Indianapolis was, you know, was double feast. I wish I would have won my first race somewhere else and then won Indy, but it happened to be this way, and I'll take it any time.
It was a feast for the fans as well when the Flying Dutchman finally pulled into victory lane. Arie Luyendyks charge to the checkered flag resulted in a record speed average of 185.981 miles per hour. Almost 15 miles an hour faster than Bobby Rahal's mark set in 1986. It was a record that Luyendyk savored.
When I took the checkered, I went through turn 1 kind of fast, and then I slowed down. I said, I gotta slow down and let this sink in and enjoy this.
As he took the traditional drink of milk and waved to the crowd from the pace car, Arie Luyendyk could finally enjoy the rewards of an IndyCar career that had its share of disappointments. But like so many great drivers before him, Luyendyk was drawn back by the grandeur of the event. In 1990, Arie Luyendyk joined the legends at the Indy 500, a race for heroes.